Let's talk about creating an LLC for your rental property. And so if you're interested in this topic, here's an overview I want you to pay attention to. First of all, we need to have a clear idea about the advantages to starting an LLC in terms of having it with the rental property sort of combination. LLCs are known for their combination of flexible management structure and tax benefits, right? Everybody knows that. Their pass-through taxation status is ideal for real estate because, many expenses can be written off. This can help you save money on your income tax returns. Think about it. So anytime real estate investors open their property to renters, long or short term, they open themselves up to personal liability risk. If anything, even an accident happens on your property that involves others, there is a chance that you can get sued for damages. For most accidents, liability insurance will help pick up the tab. However, depending on the limits on your insurance policy, you may be responsible for covering costs that go above your limits. This is really important to think about. Okay, so without an LLC, your personal assets can be garnished by a court order to pay out those remaining damages. However, if your property is held by an LLC, then only the assets of that LLC are at risk. In a worst-case scenario, you will need to sell the property where the accident occurred or other properties held by the LLC to pay off the damages, but your personal wealth cannot be touched even if selling that property doesn't add up to the total damage sum, right? And so this is kind of important to look at things from a personal liability point of view. Another advantage to using LLCs to hold rental property is that there are no limits on the number you can start. Some people choose to have a separate LLC to hold each of their properties, so they maximize their liability protection. So lastly, LLC can have one member. In other words, you have a single member LLC or multiple members. It really depends on you. If investors are coming together to purchase properties for rent, doing so without a multi-member LLC actually opens each person up to liability risk. The LLC structure provides protection to all investors' personal assets. Additionally, what we have found in our research is that if there is a strong LLC operating agreement in place, the financial input and output will be easily decided ahead of time, making this a more simple transaction. By the way, boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Now let's talk about when to start a rental property LLC. The thing is that you need to understand it's all about timing. It's not just about the transactional nature of things. Chronology plays an important role too. Even though you can start an LLC at any time during your rental business operation, the best time to start an LLC, in our view, based on our extensive experience in this field, is before you purchase your first property that you'll be renting. Before, not during, not after. Because if you do this before, this will help you avoid having to transfer the property from your personal name to your LLC, which can be really, really complicated. Sometimes can be really messy. So depending on how you purchase the property, you may face unexpected fees when you go to transfer the property. So if you purchase the property without a loan, you shouldn't have any issues at all. However, if you mortgage the property, you will need to check with your lender to determine whether you will have any unexpected consequences. Let me give you an example. Your mortgage holder might exercise an option to close your loan, triggering closing costs or a due on sale clause. And if you start your LLC before purchasing any rental properties, you can avoid unexpected costs and complications that come with transferring property from one name to another. This is kind of important. And you might be thinking, well, this is not really that complicated. Well, it might be complicated if the state you live in is different from the state where the property is located. So you're dealing now, all of a sudden, your LLC is no longer a domestic LLC. Your LLC becomes a foreign LLC. So let's say you are in New York and you bought property in Connecticut. So basically now you have to deal with Connecticut. And if you have an LLC, if your LLC is New York domiciled, that means from a Connecticut point of view, this is a foreign LLC. So this can add more complications to the whole process. I'm not going to get into the foreign LLC versus domestic LLC sort of elements of discussion in today's conversation, but I just want to let you know that it can be complicated. So bottom line is that you want to start a rental property LLC before you buy the property. So all the paperwork is done before you buy anything. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic, we are having a conversation about how to create an LLC for your rental property this year. So now let me give you the steps I want you to follow right now if you're trying to start an LLC for your rental property. So there are 5 important steps, only five. And so once you're able to follow through, you should be fine. The first thing you want to do here is you want to name your LLC. Sounds logical, right? But you need to name your LLC. When you are naming your investment property LLC, along with following all state guidelines, you want to choose something that is simple and professional. It's not about just trying to complicate things, trying to have it's not about, this is some serious stuff, okay? In the real estate world, marketing is more about reputation than anything else. So using a formal name, your own name, or initials of members is an easy, a professional way to establish your company. And so let me give you some common name stating, some common state naming guidelines. For example, your LLC's name must have some variations of the phrase limited liability company, or one of its acronyms, LLC or L.L.C. Your name cannot be confused with a government agency, for example, IRS, Department of Treasury, or university. Use of any restricted words must be approved by the city or state, for example, university or bank. And so that's the first thing. First thing is you want to name your LLC. The second thing is you need to designate a registered agent for your LLC. So who can be a registered agent? By the way, you can be your own registered agent. So a registered agent is an individual or company that is responsible for receiving all legal and state correspondence on behalf of your LLC. So the agent must be located within the states and accessible during normal business hours. And the LLC can choose a member of the company to serve as the agent, or they can hire a registered agent to actually take on the role. And if you choose to use an LLC formation service to start your LLC, many services offer to be your registered agent, and they will charge you an additional fee though. And some offer free services for the first year after forming your LLC. So the possibilities are there, and it's just a lot better. It's just a lot better to have to get an all-in-one service for your LLC, including one that offers registered agent services. The third thing I want you to do here is to complete and file organization documents. So when we talk about organization documents, we're speaking about things that can get a little messy or a little complicated. It really depends on the state where you live in right now, because all states have different rules for when it comes to organization documents. You want to complete and file something called your LLC formation documents with the office in your states that's responsible for processing business affairs, and this is usually the Secretary of State's office. And you got to pay the fee too, though. Don't forget to pay the fee. Okay. Now, the formation documents, usually called the Articles of Organization or Certificate of Formation, differs from state to state, but it generally requires some details that we have seen. Like, at least based on our research, the information seems to be pretty standard across states. So they'll ask you, for instance, to have name and address of your LLC, the registered agent name and address if different from you, the business structure, whether your LLC will be member managed or manager managed. So you got to really kind of have a clear idea about that. So that also needs to have the date of formation information, the date of dissolution information if predetermined. Otherwise, agreement that's the whole LLC is perpetual. In other words, it has no no end in sight. And you got to also put the signature of the founding member. The reason why this document is really important is because, so first of all, the document is called the Certificate of Formation, right? So this is the foundational element here, and this is what's going to actually create, lay the groundwork for your LLC. And the reason why you want to have this for your rental property is because if your LLC is not properly formed, that means the liability risk that you are trying to get through this whole process will never happen in the first place. If something were to happen to your rental property, you will face all the consequences. So this is why, to not actually rush, take the time to actually find exactly what kind of process you're getting yourself into, and then start acting. Okay, this is really important. You want to start acting so that you can cover cover yourself and avoid all the problems that can come with the rental property that's been bought in your whole name. Plus, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to create an LLC for your rental property. The next thing I want you to do here is to create an operating agreement. So you want to have an operating agreement so that, again, going back to what I said, you want to really protect your rental property. Since your LLC will be dealing with real estate, creating an operating agreement should be one of your first priorities. An operating agreement is a contract between members and the company that details the LLC's day-to-day operations, broad picture, goals, and financial accounting information. And you also want to list information about property management. By the way, if you are a single member LLC, you can still have an operating agreement just in case something were to happen. So even though only some states require all LLCs to have an agreement in place, it's really, really great to have one, even if it's not required in your state, especially if you have multiple investors. It's all about putting things in writing, right? It's all about just clarifying everything so nobody's actually asking questions about stuff that they may not have no clue about. And property entails a lot of liability risk, and an operating agreement is your core line of defense if your LLC faces a lawsuit. Okay, this is kind of an important element you have to understand. And then you need to get an EIN. So you want to get an employer identification number from the IRS. And so this is one of those things where you want to get this so you can use it for all kinds of stuff. So your new LLC, for instance, can get a business loan, can get a business line of credit, can get a business credit card, and those credit cards, you can get them with or without permit. It's just a matter of you waiting for the right time to apply, and really, you should be fine. One thing I also need to say here is that when we talk about starting an LLC in general, you want to make sure that you have all those elements that I mentioned to you. That way, you know you're covered should something were to happen. You want to really feel covered something were to happen because you're getting the right data from the right source. Right now, the way it's written, you do not have the right data from the right source because all of those things should not, like all the it's important that if you want to focus on let's say you want to focus on really boosting your rental properties ability to sell in the market, then you need to have all the elements that I just spoke to you about in terms of creating an LLC and protecting that LLC by filing the right paperwork. After you get an EIN, the next thing you want to do is to transfer property to your LLC. So basically, if you already got, let's say, property under your personal name, you will need to transfer the title to your new LLC. And if you bought the property without a loan, that's what I just said earlier, you should easily be able to transfer the deed. You will need to sign it over to your LLC in front of a notary and record the deed by visiting your local courthouse. You may also need to pay transfer taxes when you change the property over to the LLC. If you have let's say you have a loan on the property, you will need to contact your vendor to see their procedure on transferring title. So this might trigger a due on sale clause, and that will close your mortgage and make it the remainder of your loan due immediately. So those are consequences you need to be aware of and be comfortable with. The next thing you want to do here is to alert current tenants and update the lease. So you'll need to give notice to your current tenants that the property is now owned by an LLC and that payments will be made to the company and not to you personally. So since the current rental contacts with tenants will be between you and the renters, you also need to update all leases to reflect the contract between the renters and the LLC. One thing I need to say before closing here is that when we analyze all the steps you need to follow through when creating your LLC, it's important to understand that it's all about consistency. Just want to quickly remind you here. So you need to name your LLC, designate a registered agent for your LLC, complete and file organization documents, create an operating agreement, you have to get an EIN, you need to transfer property to your LLC, you need to alert current tenants and update the lease. So some of the things that are really easy is like when you actually when you try to really have an LLC, whether it is in your state or outside of your state, if you follow this step by step, you will be covering your ass in a long run. It's all about understanding all the laws that govern our society at a very high level, to understand that you want your LLC to actually operate in a sector where it has all the capabilities possible to do the things it wants to do. So this is cool. So I want to quickly talk to you about, when we talk about creating an LLC for rental properties, you need to understand that there are actually some advantages about putting rental property in the LLC overall. And those advantages, the good thing is they actually last in time. So basically, if you set things up right way, right now, those benefits could actually last for 20 years, 30 years, as long as there is no problem here. So putting rental property in the LLC is a layer of protection over your personal assets. It's also a clean way to keep personal and business assets separate from one another. So should you really get an LLC for your Airbnb? Well, absolutely. Short and long-term rentals are best held by an LLC to reduce personal liability without paying double in taxes. If you open a corporation to hold the properties, this will entail a double taxation because the corporation pays all the corporate fields, and shareholders pay personal income tax on their profit from the corporation. This is kind of important. And the thing is that you need to understand, you can always do what you want with your revenue. For example, you can keep the income from your rentals in your own bank account. But if you want to really go back to what I said about you want to really separate your business affairs from your personal affairs, it's just a lot better to actually to create an LLC business bank account. That way, you are able to separate your business account, your LLC cash account, and your business personal account, so that nobody's really coming to you and say, "Listen, you haven't actually taken care of The most important element here is that if you get an LLC, if you get an Airbnb for your LLC, or your LLC for an Airbnb, or you have a bank account, this really goes back to your strategy and the long-term vision you have. Let me give you an example. Let's say your strategy is to actually acquire multifamily houses and actually rent them out. If you have the right kind of financing, you are good to go. If you have the right line of credit, you are good to go. You can actually multiply this kind of transactions over and over and over. But if you don't have that expertise, you're going to probably go and just fight like little things. So don't do this, okay? If you're going to learn from this process, it's just a lot better to understand what you're putting yourself into, and this is really, really important. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. In today's conversation, I was just talking to you about how to create an LLC for your rental property this year. So I give you the overview and I give you the steps. And so the things you need to understand also when it comes to starting an LLC, rental property owners. Thank you so much for your attention. God bless you. I'll speak to you another time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.